Friends, all the parables that we hear today, three of them, like a parable sandwich, are about finding something that was lost. And all of them share about the superabundant love of God, the superabundant mercy of God as shepherd and father. In our first reading, we hear about this shepherd who cannot be an earthly shepherd. There's just no way. An earthly shepherd, if he had 99 sheep and left them in the desert to go get the one, they'd say that's about the stupidest thing you could do. Because the sheep are out there in the desert. I mean, if you had another shepherd with you, yes, you could do this. Or somebody to attend to the sheep so the wolves don't get them and somebody doesn't come and steal them. But it seems that the shepherd is alone. So he does what this heavenly shepherd would do, and he goes out. Because this sheep had a mind of its own, and it wandered away from the rest of the herd and flock. It's funny, it's herd, like sheep herd, but you call the herd a flock anyway. And sheep are stupid. They're not as stupid as goats, but they're pretty stupid. And they run off. One of them runs off, probably caught in the crags somewhere on a cliff. Oftentimes you see that image of the good shepherd with the lamb over his shoulders in a craggy area, bringing this one back to the flock, and the rejoicing that takes place. I believe St. Bernadette had an experience like this, if I'm not mistaken. There was a young lamb called Blanco, and she was away from Lourdes and away from all the tumult associated with her seeing the Blessed Virgin Mary. She was staying with another family, our family members away from there. She was tending the sheep, and little Blanco didn't come back at the end of the day when she put the sheep in the pen. And she knelt down and prayed for little Blanco, and then she heard the sheep bleeding, and there was Blanco right back into the sheepfold. Bernadette knows. But there's this image of God's superabundant mercy in this. Like, he leaves the 99, and the shepherd, Jesus, a figure of Jesus, goes out and finds this sheep and saves it. In the second, we have this lost coin, and we may be tempted to gloss over this. This woman has 10 silver coins, and somehow one gets lost. I think she needs to get a safe, just put it all in there. It's all locked away. But nonetheless, she loses one, and she frantically searches the house and eventually finds it. You say, big deal. Well, this woman, in her time, may be engaged to be married, and this is her dowry, and 10% of it is gone. Is this going to make the husband withdraw and say, I don't think so, we don't have enough to make a good start? She could be a woman who is betrothed to somebody, and this is her dowry. And so finding this coin, she's joyful that everything should be okay as far as her and her fiance. We don't know for sure, but what's really interesting in these three parables, the first one we have the shepherd, and the second one we have the father, and then this one we have this woman who looks for this coin. And oftentimes the Spirit is given feminine qualities, and it's like, okay, Father John, that's some liberal wacko stuff you're talking about there. No, it's in the catechism. I didn't get a chance to look it up for you today, but it's in the catechism that there are could be some feminine aspects associated with the Spirit. The Spirit the Spirit is just that. It doesn't have physical organs like we do. Nonetheless, it could be a reference to the Spirit. And then the Father's superabundant mercy is on display in the parable of the lost, in this parable of the prodigal son, the lost son. But, however, we see that both sons need saving. Both sons need salvation. And how is that? Entitlement. Entitlement. Both of these boys are steeped in a spirit of entitlement at different times of their life. An example, the prodigal says, entitlement is an attitude that someone owes me something. The prodigal son says, Father, quote, Father, give me the share of your estate that should come to me. It says me twice in that sentence. Me. Maybe one more me. Me. Give me the share of the estate that should come to me. That's entitlement, right? Because according to Reverend Billy Graham, I listen to him out in the garage. If you're ever passing by, I listen to him, I listen to Catholic radio, and I listen to sometimes Joel Osteen. But when Joel Osteen starts, the prosperity, health, and wealth gospels, I change the channel. His other sermons are better. But when it's health and wealth, it's like, no, turn the channel. That's not what Christians believe. He's a good guy. He was raised in his own tradition, and I think that his heart is pure. But that just is not the gospel, health and wealth. You may be able to look in the Old Testament and glean that kind of attitude, but when Jesus comes, who is the fullness of revelation, he turns that totally upside down on its head. Nonetheless, both need saving. And so, according to Dr. Billy Graham, Reverend Billy Graham, 1/3 of the property should go to the second son. If a man has two sons, 1/3 goes to the youngest, and the rest goes, 2/3 goes to the oldest. This is after the father is dead. And the father doesn't even argue with him. He does it. Here it is. And he goes off and he squanders it. And it got so bad, he just burned through the money. He squanders it. He's reduced, to finding a job, probably not a whole lot of skill because he's been taken care of by the father for so long, that he's reduced to feeding pigs on a pig farm. I can kind of see him like that image of Clint Eastwood in the movie Unforgiven at the beginning, when he's trying to take care of the pigs, and the pigs have got, a fever, and he's got two young kids that are helping him, and he's trying to chase these pigs down and separate the sick ones from the healthy ones, and he's got pig slop all over him, and he's got pig dung on his face. And that's what I kind of see in my mind when I consider the prodigal son. He's covered with pig slop and maybe even pig dung. And he has this revolution. I got to go back to my father. Now, I can't ask for the status, right? This is true humility. I can't ask for the status I had as a son. But maybe he'll put me in his house as one of his workers, and I'll have food to eat, and I will have at least connection with the family. And he turns and goes. He rises and he goes back to the father. And he gets there, and his father sees him far off, and he runs to him, which we've talked about this before. This is not the image of the elder of a community to run to someone else. It's supposed to be that the others come to him, not this father. He runs, puts a robe on him. The son starts his speech, and he's like, shut up already. Puts the robe on him, the ring that signifies that he is a son of this father, shoes on his feet to say he is now walking in the right direction, and brings him in, slaughters the fattened calf, and the party begins. The older brother is out in the fields, tending the fields, overlooking maybe the workers, comes in, says, "What's all this about?" He finds out, and the father comes out to talk to him. Listen to this this attitude of entitlement. "Look," this is the younger son, or the older son saying, "Look, all these years I served you, and not once did I disobey your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to feast on with my friends. But when your son," not my brother, "your son returns, who swallowed up your property with prostitutes, for him you slaughter the fattened calf." Both sons need saving because both sons have a spirit of entitlement. Do we have a spirit of entitlement? I know I struggle with it. I mean, when you're a priest, there's a lot of privileges that are given you by people, by others, and the priest really has to pray through these things. They always want, every time you have a meal, "Father, you get in line first." It's like, I don't want to get in line first. First shall be last, and the last shall be first. But a lot of this stuff, this entitlement, this temptation is all around us. Here's one. I've been married for 25 years, and my wife is no longer available to me in the marital embrace. And I've got needs. So I go out and I find a mistress. I've been watching a couple of series, or a couple of movies on General George Patton. I never knew that he had a mistress when he was in Europe. It was good to see, at least if this second movie was portrayed correctly, that he gave what was due to his wife. But this is the attitude of some. Well, my wife isn't available. I have needs. I'm going to fill those needs. I have a Protestant friend. You know what he says? Nobody ever died from not getting any. That's what he says. He says, "Show me one person that has died because of this." I said, "Well, I can't show you that because I've never heard of anybody dying from that." Is it difficult in a marriage? Yes. Are there solutions? Possibly. But this is not the answer. When I see a wife who is, going to Costco to get the best bang for the buck for the kids, and staying up with the kids that are sick, and driving the kids to school, and all these other things that moms do, and she's tired, she's worn out, and then I see this situation take place in the family. It's like this is total selfishness on the part of the husband. Guys, if any of you are involved in this, cut it the hell out. Just say, this is the end. Delete all forms of contact, and reaffirm your love and your vows to your spouse. Others experience an attitude of entitlement in the workplace, in the government, all these kinds of things. What do we do? How do we get out of this? Well, it seems to me that this prodigal son, there's a crisis here that is begging him to move out of this spirit of entitlement into a spirit of humility and thanksgiving. He has this experience of feeding the pigs and being hungry, starving, in fact. What about us? Maybe an experience of death will bring us to this place of freedom from the spirit of entitlement. Maybe the loss of a business, the loss of a job, maybe a battle with an addiction. All of these things and more beg us to turn to the Father. To turn to the Father. We can do that today. We can do that today when we come up and receive Holy Communion. We can come to the Father through the Son. We receive the Son. We can come to the Father through the Son by the Holy Spirit. And we can be remade. We can be freed from a spirit of entitlement.